You made your soup too salty again. Sam got sick and died because you kept putting out stuff like this. My father-in-law twisted his face in disgust as he sipped the chicken soup I made. Here we go again, I thought. I sigh inwardly. They say my chicken soup tastes too salty, but it's always been light on salt ever since I was single. If I dilute this chicken soup, it'll almost taste like water, I thought. I talked back to them in my mind. My husband Sam passed away because of a reoccurrence of his original chronic illness, so it has nothing to do with my cooking. Then my mother-in-law finally laughed. Cindy, are you sure you don't want us to get sick like Sam? You're trying to take over this house, aren't you? Hey, Dad, isn't it dangerous to keep Cindy in this house? Well, is that right? Cindy, you wanted to take over this house, huh? This house. What is there in this house that is worth taking? I thought. I was stunned and speechless. However, my mother-in-law, perhaps thinking that I didn't get it, said something outrageous. Dad, let's get Cindy out of this house. Now's the time. Huh? My mother-in-law and father-in-law moved amazingly fast and had my stuff packed up and out of the house in no time. Wait a minute, this is a misunderstanding. I don't believe a word you say. I don't want you coming back to this house again. My father-in-law closed and locked the front door in front of me. No way. I had to stand there stunned by the suddenness of the situation. My name is Cindy and I am 38 years old. My parents died when I was very young and I was raised by my grandparents. They took good care of me but were not very well off financially. They have their old age ahead of them, so I shouldn't push them too hard. I didn't want to bother them about money, so I decided to get a job after high school. It was a small company, but I was hired as an office worker there. The work was hard, but I took it seriously and did it well. There I met Sam, who was 2 years older than me. He was a kind and gentle person. That was my first impression of him. By the way, his first impression of me was that of a serious person with a strong sense of justice. It seems that's what it was. That's why it was a little difficult for us to get to know each other at first. But you are a bit outgoing sometimes, and I think that's what makes you so lovable and cute. He used to say such things to me. A few years later, we got married. There was no wedding, though. This is because my husband had a dream of becoming a business owner. He had been saving money steadily since he was a bachelor. My husband's dream is also my dream. With that in mind, the two of us decided to work together to save money, so it was not hard for me to live with my husband's parents after marriage. In the beginning, after his grandfather passed away, my husband's parents lived in the house. My father-in-law was a very kind and nice man. We got along well, and my father-in-law was a gentleman like my husband. I had a feeling that my mother-in-law had a part-time job, but that was not certain, and she was home most of the time. I wonder what she's doing, I thought. My mother-in-law was tricky. After I got married, I resigned from work to focus on doing housework and taking care of the house. My mother-in-law, not knowing this, has been abusing me in the absence of my husband and father-in-law. You're so lucky to be able to enjoy my son's earnings. I don't know why Sam married such an uninteresting woman like you, but I think he's compromising too much. And, hey, you ugly wife, don't just drink tea by yourself. You should give me some too. You're not very smart, are you? And you're just a loafer, enjoying yourself on your husband's earnings, you know. Nitwit, get off your butt and cook some food. She'd say things like that. My mother-in-law leads a lazy life. Doesn't cook or clean and expects me to do everything for her. Which one of us is the loafer? As much as I wanted to say that back, getting into trouble with my mother-in-law here would only get my husband in trouble. I wanted to make everything seem fine to my husband, who was tired from work. Fortunately, my mother-in-law rarely says anything to me when my husband is home, so I think I'm doing okay. For the sake of my husband's dreams, I cannot have trouble with my in-laws here. I continue to support my husband by quietly doing household chores no matter what my mother-in-law said. A few years later, my husband and I worked together to finally establish a company. Although it was small in the beginning, the company grew and grew. Now that the company is back on track, I can rest easy now, I thought. I was relieved at that time. When my husband turned 40, a medical checkup revealed his illness. The illness that was thought to have been cured when he was a child had returned. I thought to myself, no kidding, how did this happen? The disease progressed faster than expected and he fought it, but my husband died within a few months. After that, my in-laws were terrible. With the death of my husband and the absence of a protective presence, my mother-in-law's attitude became even worse. Ranting, sarcasm, complaining, and cursing were commonplace, not to mention abusive. I was treated like a servant. You pushed Sam too hard, and now he's gone too soon. Finally, even my father-in-law, who had been kind to me, began to complain together with my mother-in-law. What should I do? Even Dad, who I rely on, has started to make me look bad. He wouldn't listen or talk to me no matter what I said, I thought. Cindy, I told you to keep the yard clean. Why don't you do it right away? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll get right on it. Dad, it's true. Sam and that Cindy's outgoing personality was cute, but to me, she was just an idiot. It's really useless that she can't even do her own chores, right? I bit my lip in frustration at her mocking my husband's words. Why does she have to say so much, I thought. I was bothered by my mother-in-law, who has been doing whatever she wanted to do since my husband died. One day, after such a state of affairs continued, you made your soup too salty again. Sam got sick and died because you kept putting out stuff like this. My father-in-law twisted his face in disgust as he sipped the chicken soup I made. Here we go again, I thought. I sighed inwardly. They say my chicken soup tastes too salty, but it's always been light on salt ever since I was single. If I dilute this chicken soup, it'll almost taste like water, I thought. I have things to say to them in my mind, but I don't say it. My husband Sam passed away because of a reoccurrence of his original chronic illness, which had nothing to do with my cooking. My grandmother, who raised me in the first place, was a health-conscious person who paid a lot of attention to the seasoning of her food. That's the cooking that she taught me. I'd rather you tell me how this seasoning can make you sick. Dad used to eat it and say it was delicious, but now that Sam was gone, my mother-in-law put some weird stuff up in his head, I thought. I'm sorry, I'll go ahead and fix it. It was when I said that and stood up, my mother-in-law smiled mischievously. Cindy, are you sure you don't want us to get sick like Sam? You're trying to take over this house, aren't you? Hey, Dad, isn't it dangerous to keep Cindy in this house? What? No way. Well, is that right, Cindy? You are going to take over this house, huh? This house. What is there in this house that is worth taking, I thought. I look at my father-in-law, who denies it and doesn't listen, and my mother-in-law, who grins at me as if she knows what's up. I was stunned and speechless. However, my mother-in-law, perhaps thinking I didn't get it, said something outrageous. Dad, let's get Cindy out of this house. Now's the time. My mother-in-law and father-in-law moved amazingly fast and had my stuff packed up and out of the house in no time. Wait a minute, this is a misunderstanding. Take over something. I have no intention of doing that. I don't believe a word you say. I don't want you coming back to this house again. My father-in-law closed and locked the front door in front of me. No way. I had to stand there stunned by the suddenness of the situation. I was kicked out and not allowed in the house and stayed at my husband's office that day. They wouldn't let me in the house after the next day. I had no choice but to rent a shabby apartment. Actually, my husband's company pays well now that I had taken over it and became the president. However, I was paying the rent and other expenses for my in-laws, so a lot of money would go out. So I just continued living in a shabby apartment and saved money. My mother-in-law aside, my father-in-law was a very kind and nice man at first and treated me well, so I can't abandon him even if he's being like that, I thought. I know that I have a weakness to my personality. I'm sure if my husband were here, he would laugh at me and say I'm a softie. 2 months later, I started living in a ramshackle apartment. When I opened the front door to go to work, I noticed a black garbage bag on the front door. What is this? Who would do such a thing? I found it a bit creepy and picked it up and moved it to the dump. But the next morning, another black garbage bag was left on the front of the door. Then I moved it to the dump, and the next day, it is again in front of my door. This continued for several days. Someone's obviously harassing me. Who on earth would do such a thing, I thought. Let's find the culprit. With this in mind, I peeked through the door scope of the front door early in the morning and waited for the culprit. Then, someone's here. What? It's Dad? It was my father-in-law who was placing the black garbage bag in the front door, looking around the area. My father-in-law put down the garbage bag and quickly left as if to escape. Was it really my father-in-law? Then what the hell is this? I opened the bag to see what's inside. Inside were a few clothes. I found an envelope hidden between them, and in there was a document. I looked at the back and saw my husband's name on it. I wonder why the hell this is here. When I opened it, I found my husband's handwriting, which felt nostalgic. There was an apology from my husband written on it.
Dear Cindy, I knew that you were being harassed and bullied by my mother, but you tried desperately to hide it, and above all, you were afraid that it would destroy our family's relationship. This caused you to suffer. I am very sorry. My will and testament is hidden in a bookcase in my parents' house. If my mother finds out, she will try to kick you out of the house and keep my assets for herself. So I want you to collect it before my mother finds it. And with the money, I hope to be able to establish a nursing home, which has been my ultimate dream. I don't want you to have to deal with my aging father, and most of all, I want my father to live out his retirement in the optimal environment. And so on. Just like Sam. I wiped away the tears that flowed when I saw my husband's letter. Okay, I must not let Sam's thoughts go to waste, I thought. So I looked up and noticed that my father-in-law was looking at me from some distance away. Dad? Cindy, I read Sam's letter too. I learned that my wife had been harassing you terribly, and that she had kicked you out of the house because she wanted your inheritance. I didn't know that, and I took her at her word to kick you out. I'm really sorry for all the horrible things I've said. I'm so sorry.
My father-in-law apologized and fell silent. He must have sneaked the clothing out of the house in a garbage bag so that my mother-in-law would not find them.
You were still subsidizing our rent after Sam was gone, weren't you? I was too late to realize such a thing. I'm grateful. Thank you, Cindy.
My father-in-law, who told me so kindly, was a gentle figure when my husband was around. He had been taking it out on me because he'd been listening to my mother-in-law's words out of grief over the loss of his son, but now he finally had woken up. I smiled in relief. No, it's fine. I'm glad you understand. I understand the sadness of losing Sam, because we are family after all. Yes, family. But a certain someone doesn't think so, though, I thought. My mother-in-law doesn't seem to think so, though. It seems that the assets were more important than the sadness of losing Sam. I muttered in a low voice, and my father-in-law looked at me with a gasp. I've been harassed and verbally abused and experienced other terrible things. But I have been patient and endured it because she's Sam's family. Still, after all the terrible things she did to me when Sam died, she wanted my inheritance, so she said all sorts of things to you and had me kicked out. That's beyond selfish. I've run out of patience, you know. I can't forgive her. My patience finally reached its limit and I exploded. I don't care if my father-in-law is looking at me with a scared face. Watch, if she hits me, I'll double pay back. I returned with my father-in-law to my husband's parents' home. My mother-in-law, who was at home, saw us and her eyes widened in surprise. This is Sam's letter. I hear you've been harassing Cindy a lot and doing terrible things to her.
Harassment? That's a misunderstanding. I didn't do anything, I swear. Sometimes the chores weren't done well enough, and I would point that out, but I said those things for Cindy's benefit.
When questioned by my father-in-law, she tries to keep quiet. You are really a jerk, aren't you? How the heck can you say that you didn't do anything, I thought. It can't be a misunderstanding. The fact that you harassed her was mentioned in this letter.
Is this letter really Sam's? Cindy doesn't have a job, so maybe she had trouble making ends meet after she left home and wrote it herself.
Who would lie and write such a thing? It's not my handwriting to begin with, I thought. When he got dismayed by my mother-in-law's words, my father-in-law let out a huge sigh. This is Sam's handwriting, no matter how you look at it. And you don't know that Cindy has taken over Sam's company and is now the president. She even pays the rent on this house.
What? President? And she pays rent?
My mother-in-law froze and looked at me slowly. She seemed unable to catch up with her understanding of the sudden truth. How dare you say all those terrible things about me like I'm a loafer or a useless person? But the one holding up this house was me. When I said so firmly, my mother-in-law turned pale. It's not good to bully me and try to get me to do everything. So I suggest that you get out of this house.
Wait a minute. Dad!
He didn't care about his panicking wife. No matter how many excuses my mother-in-law made, my father-in-law would not listen. And so my mother-in-law was mercilessly evicted from the house by my father-in-law. Cindy, I'm so sorry I didn't believe you and all these terrible things. My father-in-law again lowered his head and apologized again. With my mother-in-law gone, I felt lighter and somewhat refreshed, and I used my husband's inheritance to build a nursing home, which was his dream. I now work with my father-in-law to run my husband's company and nursing home. As for my mother-in-law, she has been kicked out of the house and hadn't been working, so she's panicking at having to live alone all of a sudden. She's having a hard time finding a new job because she never had lived alone and had been out of work almost all her life. She deserved it. Hopefully she'll reflect on that, I thought. By working together with my father-in-law, I have been able to balance my husband's company and the nursing home, which has gradually increased our income. I miss my husband, but I'm living happily. Thank you for watching until the end. Click like and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.
After all, a bride is someone else's, so it's a waste to serve expensive coffee to someone like you. We'll have it ourselves. With that, my mother-in-law grinned. I see, well, it can't be helped. This is a game. It's a doubles match, with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law as one pair and us as the other. There's a strategy to the game. Well, just watch. So I put on a big smile and said, I'm excited. My name is Mia. I'm a 32-year-old part-time housewife. I've been married to my husband Carter for 5 years. Finally, the day came to build our own home. Since we got married, building a house has been our goal, and we've been working hard together. We looked at various houses and carefully considered what we wanted, while working hard to save money. When we were 2 years into our marriage, we were blessed with a child, which caused some setbacks in our plans. But my husband and I didn't give up, and we worked together to reach our goal. However, when it came time to actually build the house, it was more difficult than I had imagined. A house is a big purchase after all. You can't just buy another one if you make a mistake. It's not that easy. We had to consider things like transportation, convenience for shopping, a child-friendly environment, and the reputation of the elementary school district. We also had to consider if it would be easy for my husband, who is a full-time employee, to commute to work. There were so many things we had to research, and just looking for land was a struggle in itself. In the end, we settled near my husband's parents' house. It's not like we chose to live nearby because we liked it here. It's because the location was good. It's not like we're living together, so we decided we'll have to put up with some things. Once we found the land, it was time to order the house. But that was difficult too. There were a lot of problems to deal with, especially the budget, in order to build the ideal home we have been thinking about for so long. We managed to move forward step by step. However, there were complicating factors, namely my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law, Isabella. For some reason, these two kept interfering and giving their opinions. When we said we were going to build a house, they suddenly became very interested. My mother-in-law's eyes lit up, and my single sister-in-law, who was in her late 20s, was eager as well. Where are you going to build it? Which construction company are you going to use? What kind of interior are you going to have? She kept asking all kinds of questions. I tried to brush her off with vague answers, but then she started showing up uninvited to meetings with a construction company and architect. I wonder where she heard about them. As I muttered to myself, my husband apologized.
Sorry, I talked about it with her.
My husband was the culprit. Even if I glared at him and asked what he was thinking, it was too late. Oh, don't you think the kitchen storage is too small? My mother-in-law chimed in, and then Isabella added, A wood deck is a must-have, right? Someone please sew these two's mouths shut. If you're going to have a barbecue in the garden, it's better to have a large sink. A walk-in closet should be bigger. As for the windows, we should consider soundproofing and use double panes. We should also have a room that's suitable for your parents' needs, right? And don't you need a room for Isabella to stay in too? Oh my gosh, wait a second. Why do we need a room for your parents? And what do you mean by a room for your sister to stay in? With the architect giving a wry smile and my husband and I pushed to the side, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law kept sticking their noses in. After the two of them left, I asked my husband to confirm. I had a bad feeling, although I didn't want to think that way. Hey, you're not planning on living with them, are you? The way they were talking made me suspect that they were planning something like that. I asked my husband hesitantly, and he shook his head in a panic.
Oh, I don't think my dad would ever consider leaving the house he's grown accustomed to living in. And Isabella is already an adult. Even if something happened to their home, it's impossible for her to come live with us.
Yeah, you're right. Carter denied it, but my anxiety didn't go away. We somehow managed to ignore the interference of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and the design of the house was decided, and construction began. And 1 year later, our long-cherished dream home was finally completed. It was tough, it was long, and oh, it was tedious. As I lay down on the sofa in the living room after the move, I closed my eyes and recalled all the hardships we had faced. Looking at various properties was a good learning experience and was quite interesting. Hey Mom, is it okay if I put my cup here? Sure, why not? Then let's put mine and Isabella's stuff in this corner of the cupboard. At times, the comments of the architect made me realize the difference between my ideal home and the reality, which was a bit discouraging. The upstairs room should have good sunlight, right? Can I have the biggest room? Yeah, I don't want a small room either because of my age, so I'll take that. I really wanted to plant a hydrangea tree in the yard, but I never thought I'd have to research the type of soil. Okay, I'll call the moving company. Please, Isabella, you're so reliable. What's with these people moving around in my house? Mother-in-law and Isabella, why are you touching and moving things around in the house without permission? Huh? We're just moving things around to make it more livable. My sister-in-law nonchalantly answered my question. My clothes, which I haven't taken out of the box yet, were pushed into a corner while my sister-in-law's clothes were mysteriously being put in the closet. My mother-in-law also. The new house is nice, isn't it? It's so exciting. She said that as she made tea and started munching on chips without asking. Oh no, there are crumbs on the floor. Hey, please don't do anything without permission. This is our house, you know. I shouted anxiously at the two of them, who acted as if they were going to live here from now on. But then, at that moment, the atmosphere changed. What are you talking about? My sister-in-law said. Huh? I tilted my head, and my sister-in-law pointed a finger at me and said, My brother built this house, you know. My mother-in-law nodded in agreement with those words. That's right. Since it's a house that my son built, what's the problem with parents and siblings living in it? That's a big problem, though. It's something I've been worried about even before we built the house. My blood runs cold at the thought of it actually becoming a reality. I can't believe it. But these two? Well then, in that case, Isabella and I will use the large room on the second floor. Is it okay if Carter's room is next to it? No, that's a big problem. The large room is for my husband and me, and the one next to it is for our son. What are you talking about? My son and grandson could share the same room. What is my mother-in-law saying? No, it's too small to make it a room for my husband, myself, and our son. If it's just my son and grandson, it should be manageable, right? But I'm here too, you know. What are you talking about? At that moment, my mother-in-law gave a sudden unpleasant smile and looked at me. And then, this house was built by my son, who has a blood relation to me. Therefore, it's only the blood relatives who have the right to live here. As for you, who have no blood relation, you're just a stranger. You can sleep on that sofa over there. That's what my mother-in-law said as she pointed at the sofa. No way, you're kidding me. These two, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, seem to be serious about living in this house. Our precious home is going to be taken over by this alien parent-child duo. In distress, I consulted with my husband that night. Although the two of them haven't stayed over yet, they were talking about moving in soon, mentioning something about a moving company. So they might actually start living here in the near future. Hey, are you seriously considering giving up the big room to those two? No way, I wouldn't do that. When I told my husband what had happened today, he frowned. But they're talking about turning our room into your mother-in-law's and Isabella's room. That's a little too much. My husband looked troubled and tilted his head, but he talked to my mother-in-law and sister-in-law the next day. And I thought they understood, but... Huh? Mother-in-law, what are you doing? What does it look like? We're moving. She didn't understand at all. When my son was at daycare and my husband was at work, my mother-in-law and movers came to our house. Before I knew it, the movers were bringing in boxes and furniture. What do you mean, moving? Honestly, you're such an inflexible daughter-in-law. Why should we have to put up with a small room? You're such an ungrateful child. You're just a stranger after all. Did you not hear anything from your son? Of course, he said the big room was a no-go. Hey, the conversation got narrower, didn't it? I mean, they can't even live in this house to begin with. While I was still in shock, all the items were brought in. The place where my son's room was supposed to be was now occupied by a large number of boxes, and my sister-in-law Isabella came in. Wow, this room is really small. Isabella, what in the world is going on here? Oh, Mia, I'm glad to see you today. Let's celebrate our first day in this new house with some steaks, shall we? What? No. Without even listening to me, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law disappeared into the room and slammed the door shut. Thanks to the surprise attack by my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, our new home had fallen into enemy hands. In no time, we had started living together with the occupying forces. I'm not really comfortable with being solely responsible for cleaning, laundry, and cooking, and it doesn't feel great to have our things used without our permission. However, even though we were living together, I couldn't exactly tell them not to use our things. As I was thinking this, my sister-in-law brought out a wine bottle. It's something I bought because I wanted to drink it, I said, but before I could even finish, she had already drunk it all in no time. As I sighed, I saw my mother-in-law using my expensive facial lotion excessively in the corner of my eye. That's an expensive one. It seemed like they had ordered steak, but of course I was the one who had to pay for it. I quickly prepared it, but I couldn't even have a single slice. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law take baths before my husband, my son, and me. On top of that, they leave the shower running while they take a bath. They don't contribute to the utility bills. They watch TV at high volume until late at night. The house is always messy and dirty. My motto is always to stay positive, but gradually the absurdity of the situation has become amusing to me. So I have decided to just enjoy it. This is a game of entertaining my mother-in-law and sister-in-law to the fullest. I've heard that irritation is the skin's worst enemy. Now let the hospitality tournament begin. On a certain day off, during the daytime when my husband and child were also at home, my sister-in-law woke up scratching her head. Good morning, good morning. Without even hearing the voice in my heart, my sister-in-law sat down at the dining table and... I'm so sleepy. Didn't get enough sleep. Do you have any coffee? She looked at me and asked, sleeping until noon and still feeling tired. Then similarly, the slow-to-rise mother-in-law got up. And the same thing happened. Hey, Mia, could you make some coffee for us? Upon hearing this, I stood up. This is a game. A game. If I can impress these two, then I win. While thinking that, I opened the cabinet with coffee inside. Let's see, I think I bought some new instant coffee yesterday. It was a slightly more expensive instant coffee than usual. I was excited. I showed it with a smug look, but tilted my head at the two dismayed faces. Huh? You don't like this one? Then my sister-in-law stood up and started rummaging through the shelves. And then, oh, here it is, she said, taking out some coffee beans. Oh, my husband got these as a souvenir from his boss. They were high-quality coffee beans. We can't make use of whole coffee beans in our home, so they've been lying around unused. My sister-in-law misunderstood my expression and smirked. What's this? Keeping such good beans hidden away? Your personality is really bad, Mia. Huh? My mother-in-law nodded at my sister-in-law's words. Yeah, that's right. It's a shame to waste delicious coffee on us, who are blood relatives, isn't it? You really are an outsider. It's such a waste to give this premium coffee to someone like you who's just a stranger. Huh? We'll drink this fine coffee you gave us. Instant coffee is good enough for you, stranger. My mother-in-law laughed. I don't understand the conversation, but there's no interpreter here. I was wondering what to do with the coffee beans, so I'm actually grateful that they're willing to consume them. Looking at my husband and seeing him nod, I said, It's fine, I'm happy to do it, and then chuckled twice. They probably didn't expect that kind of response from me. Huh? My mother-in-law was surprised. Ignoring their comments, I received the coffee beans from my sister-in-law. Well then, I'll make some delicious coffee now. Huh? Okay, sure, go ahead. My sister-in-law seemed bewildered by my smiling face. Rolling up my sleeves in front of her, I was fully motivated and determined. All right, let the game begin. I'll make some delicious coffee. However, as I opened the bag and looked at the beans in front of me, I felt a bit puzzled. I'll call my worried-looking husband over here and ask for his advice. I beckoned, and my husband came trotting over. What's wrong? Hey, what do you do with the coffee beans? Actually, I've never made coffee from beans, so I asked my husband. Yeah, I don't know either. And there I was, stuck. Oh no, we're in trouble. We've stumbled at the first hurdle of the game to make the best coffee ever. Should I look it up online? No, that's like looking at a strategy guide. It's a last resort. So what should we do? We have to make the best with what little knowledge we have, right? I think you have to grind them into powder. Well, I can see that. But we don't have a grinder or a blender, do we? Where's the mortar? It got lost during the move. After thinking it over again, Carter suggested,
"Why don't we just use the bean as they are?"
I strongly agreed with my husband's idea. So let's give it a try. I set the beans in the coffee server without grinding them, and then I put the paper filter in. Alright, let's pour hot water over here.
Oh, it's coming out. Look, Mia, it has some color.
That's right, that means it's a success. I noticed that the color was really light, but I thought that must be the color of high-quality coffee. Feeling encouraged, we continued pouring hot water while giggling. It's done, we did it. We have made the high-quality coffee. I proudly presented it to my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. However, they both let out a deep sigh looking at us.
You finally did it. How long did it take you to? Goodness, what a waste of time because of someone else's daughter-in-law. Huh? It's so light.
While grinning, my mother-in-law criticizes me and then screams at the sight of the coffee. Huh? It's too light in color. What is this? My sister-in-law also frowns at the coffee that has been served. In response, my husband and I shake our heads in disbelief. This is a truly premium coffee made from premium beans. The reason it's light in color is probably because it's high quality. If you need milk or sugar, we have them, but please try it straight first, I said with a smile. I pushed the cups towards the two of them. But wait! Please, go ahead. Hey, big brother, is this really premium coffee?
Yeah, Mia and I made it ourselves. It's the highest quality. Try it.
Both of them were nervously persuaded by not only me but also my husband, and took a sip of the coffee. Immediately after, it's weak! It's disgusting! My mother-in-law and sister-in-law chimed in perfectly. What is this? This isn't coffee at all. What is this? It's definitely weird. Hey Mia, how did you make this coffee? Huh? I just poured water over the beans. What? Huh? Was there something wrong after all? I looked at my husband's face, but he just shrugged his shoulders. That's strange. I just made it normally. Was it too high quality for your taste? What? I'm a woman who suits high quality things. It's this coffee that's weird. Oh, I see. Well, please drink it all then. No, but here you go, please. Wait a minute. If she suits high quality things, she should get used to it as she drinks it. So there was only one thing to do. I forcefully pressed the coffee cup to my sister-in-law's lips and made her drink it. By the way, my husband encouraged my mother-in-law to drink more, calling it filial piety. Well, as it turned out, it became quite enjoyable. Daily games have become more fun. Emma, shall I clean the room? Hey, at least knock. Oh, sorry about that. You always come into our room without knocking. I thought it wasn't necessary. Isabella, I think everything on the floor is garbage. Shall I throw it all away? Oh my god, that's a premium bag! Mother-in-law, you mentioned yesterday that the seasoning was too light, so I made it a bit stronger today. What? It's too spicy. This isn't strong, it's just spicy. My mouth is on fire. Isabella, I see that you like the toner I have, but I have something even better for your skin. It has a unique smell, but it's really good for your skin. It stinks! What is this? Don't just put it on my face without permission! As the game of pleasing them both becomes more and more fun, I ramp up my service spirit and entertain them more and more. Since both of them are crying tears of joy, I am the winner. Although my husband also tries his best, I have the advantage since I spend more time with the two of them. While I was doing all that one day, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law disappeared. Huh? And then I got a call from my father-in-law. Come to think of it, my father-in-law was left at the family home. I wonder how he's been doing all this time. Maybe he's been able to enjoy a carefree life on his own. According to my father-in-law,
my wife and Isabella came back crying. What happened? My wife's lips turned red and swollen. And Isabella's skin is glossy but has a strong smell.
That's what he said. I wonder if they were so happy that they cried and even gave my father-in-law a progress report. But I don't want them to think it's over yet. We have plans for a barbecue in the yard tonight. I'm going to pick up my mother-in-law and sister-in-law now because I've arranged for them to enjoy themselves by doing the limbo dance next to me. I told them that I was going to pick them up at their house. For some reason, the two of them started to panic and we began a game of chase. In the end, my elderly mother-in-law was easily caught by me, and my sister-in-law turned the chase into a game of hide and seek. I already knew all the hiding spots from our child. My husband said that, and Emma was eventually found saying, "Enough, enough, please stop." You don't have to hold back from crying tears of joy like that. A few days later, suddenly the moving company arrived and carried out my mother-in-law and sister-in-law's belongings. What? Why? I was going to offer more hospitality. When I asked the two of them, who were hiding behind my father-in-law, they just shook their heads vigorously and looked pale. When I looked at my husband, he also had a really disappointed expression. Hey, it seems like your mom and sister weren't satisfied with our hospitality.
Is that so? I'll have to research more.
Hearing that conversation, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law shivered in fear. Afterwards, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law stopped coming over to our house. On the contrary, even though they live nearby and we often run into each other, when I greet them with a hello, they run away within seconds. Oh well, I guess it's fine. With the two of them gone, peaceful days returned. We successfully redecorated their room and turned it into our son's room. We even started talking about having another child. After finishing the game and feeling a little unsatisfied, I suddenly noticed the faint shadow of my father-in-law standing beside me.
Real naturals don't think they're natural, do they?
I chuckled and said, "Thank you for watching until the end.